So we're going to look at three different replays at three different MMRs, at Guardian, Ancient One, and then Immortal. And we're going to compare and contrast the different play of what players are doing in the lanes, and also a little bit afterwards, and that there's a different pace of games. So straight off the bat, Shadow Fiend, this Guardian level Shadow Fiend, is missing the first entire creep wave because he went AFK. And now he's last hitting here pretty easily, even though Drow Ranger is here on the low ground, which is at a disadvantage, and she has her precision aura. So Drow should be winning this matchup. However, Shadow Fiend is doing pretty decent. He's using all of his mana early on to not necessarily to secure creeps, but just trying to harass early on. And he bought no regen at the same time. Now this rune again isn't that useful, allows him to get one raise, but it would have been better if he had waited to level 2 to use his raises. Either way, this matchup, like Drow, should be harassing a lot more in this scenario, but now Shadow Fiend is doing better than Drow, and he actually has more last hits and one extra deny. So Drow is doing pretty awful here, and she's not taking advantage of the fact that he doesn't have regen, and she didn't look even at his regen, and now she figures out maybe I can just right click him. This is where the most unpredictable thing that you'll think about happens in this match. Anti-mage with a DD rune just blinks in, and Zeus as well at the same time. You don't expect those sort of things at higher brackets, but that's what happens sometimes at lower MMR. You get the wackiest things, and Shadow Fiend straight away is trying to pressure the tower, which is inherently good that he wants to push down this tower. It's very hard for when the mid tower is gone, you can actually, it's very hard for the enemy team to respond into it. But at the same time, Shadow Fiend is still not buying any regen, and he's rushing a blink dagger. Now this is a very interesting choice because it makes you think that possibly he's trying to play aggressive with this blink dagger or some stylish plays, but in reality what ends up happening is he never really utilizes it for anything important. What he does with the mangoes in a second. So Drow Ranger had a DD rune, he blinks up here to escape from her, so Drow is still chasing him, and he walks around this way. But now because he doesn't have any boots, it takes him a really long time to walk back. He has 34 souls, which is pretty good, and potentially 2 raises. Drow is after him. Quick reaction time to blink away from Drow's projectile. She still gets a little bit of harass on him, but again he has no TP scroll either, and if any, at a higher MMR, a support would have rotated in and caught the Shadow Fiend like diving like that. And now he buys 3 mangoes. This is where things get really interesting, and he uses 2 mangoes instantly. And watch what he does with this mana. So he spent a bunch of gold just so he could raise creeps, walk back. He's walking back further. He blinks back just so he can block the creep wave, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And what he should be doing is rotating in and doing a jungle camp while he pushes the creep wave away. The other thing is that buying 2 mangoes is a very inefficient way of gaining mana back in terms of like gold. What he should be doing is buying something like a Clarity, especially with the fact that Drow Ranger is not even trying to harass him, not doing as well as Drow Ranger, and Drow Ranger is probably rotating to another lane, wow, before Shadow Fiend even does, which is kind of less predictable than you would think, and you'd think that Shadow Fiend would be the one that would be doing so. While Drow has left the lane, he pushes down the tower, which is a good thing to be done, and he punishes that quite quickly. At this point, all 5 heroes and the enemy team are showing on the minimap, which allows him to push this tower, which I don't know if he intended to do that, but it's just what he's doing right now. Here he's a little bit confused and hesitating what he should be doing. He's looking at other lanes and trying to figure out what he should do after like this tower is dead. He's still farming this lane. He still has no intention of buying a teleport scroll, which is a very cheap. Oh, he flew it out in the courier, about time. Now he's intending to actually decide to rotate much later, and Dazzle in just that point did more passive harass than Drow probably did in the entire laning stage. The left side, so here she appears, she just had a DD rune and that was it, and he dies really quickly. this could easily be prevented if Shadow Fiend bought his own ward and placed it on the high ground. And that could easily be done. As well as that, he probably should have gone to another lane and done something there, especially with this Blink Dagger pickup. And Drow Ranger just pushes down the tower, which effectively renders what Shadow Fiend did earlier of pushing down the tower somewhat useless. So here Shadow Fiend's trying to make a play with 18 souls. He's doing the right thing of where he's trying to use his raises to do maximum damage. But at the same time, Legion catches him out. He has not very good awareness about what other items heroes have. Nothing about what's happening in other lanes either. And his bottom lane has lost really hard. And what you end up noticing that he goes Yules afterwards. And he never really makes much effect of it either. So as well, what ends up happening a lot is he just doesn't farm any jungle creeps. And here he's just going to die, nearly dies, he gets away, right? But throughout the game what ends up happening is that he's very bad awareness of this Legion commander and dies to Legion a lot. And what Legion is killing him with is this her ulti, like the actual jewel. And look, she has 182 damage. She's pretty big right now. And Shadow Fiend just farms the lane and Legion comes in. And this happens so many times throughout the game. At this point, you kind of be thinking, yeah, maybe you should go Lincoln's next item. And this Yules, maybe before you finish the Yules, when you had that Void Stone, you could have used that Void Stone to build a Lincoln's after that. And adapt your item build based on what you're doing. But instead Shadow Fiend goes Boots of Travel, yet he never leaves like his half of the map. He's always staying this side, and never does one of these tier 1 towers at the top or bottom ever die. So it ends up being that buying a Desolator and Boots of Travel makes no difference. And if you bought a Lincoln Sphere, buying something defensive actually makes you do like more like damage and allows you to escape. But either way, this was not a very impressive plays either throughout, and now he's ulting in one spot. So you get that this guy's pretty pissed off as well because he's not performing well, and he's not playing like this godly better players that play Shadow Fiend. So now we're looking at an Ancient 1 Shadow Fiend spammer, and it's likely that this is one of his better heroes. And what's very noticeable difference, the first thing he does is walk into mid lane with a ward. He has 2 tangos that he's given him and a fairy fire. He places down the observer ward on his high ground where the enemy can't see him, and he gets the maximum duration that he can out of the observer ward's vision. Instead of placing it there immediately, he waits till like around 15 seconds to place the ward down. He does an okay creep block. He nearly got it like perfect where he got the range creep in front. The range creep's gonna die first. He never tried to like harass it or contest it. He was too late. But here now he's taking a huge amount of harass just because he aggroed the creep wave, and he's messing up this first wave pretty hard. And this Invoker is generally a good combo against Shadow Fiend. And what's really important about it is that when he summons the Forge Spirit, you want to kill it as early as possible. So this is a really nice play here. So straight away you see that this Shadow Fiend player has done something a little bit better than what the average player would do just in this small scenario. And what I want to highlight is looking at Invoker's animations. Keep watching Invoker's animations here. So you can see him, he's using Sunstrike, and just when the animation goes, Shadow Fiend stops walking forward. And he also knows that this is potential. He was predicting it ahead of time that Invoker was going to use a Sunstrike here, and Invoker committed really hard for that, and he punished him as hard as he possibly could, just going like back and right clicking him again. So it were really nice plays there, but in bad turn he's taking a lot of harass at the early point. But both players now are taking like are pretty low, but he's already sent out a salve, and this is just a pretty nice play. Invoker's got like a lot of passive health regen, and he's also got his own salve, and he's affected by a tango right now. So what's really apparent here is that both players are trying to control the creep wave, he holds the creep just at top of the high ground, Invoker does, just so the creeps stop right in the place that he wants them. Now Shadow Fiend's trying to aggro the creep wave back, so he gets the creeps down onto the low ground, and he's going to try and deny this range creep, and that's high value there. And again, because he's on the low ground, he can use raises to get this creep. He also kills the Force Spirit, and now he's in a really valuable position, and Invoker's contested really hard. He didn't go for that final raise for whatever reason. He didn't think he could kill him because he only has level 2 raise. Maybe he could have, but maybe he calculated it really well and just said that, no, I'm not going to try this. Especially with the fact that potentially like Fiend could give him armor at any point, and that if the armor comes in, then the Invoker is 100% guaranteed to be saved at that point. Now again, he's constantly using the Forge Spirit, and anytime that he's not last hitting a creep, he's trying to hit this Forge Spirit and trying to kill it. So see how he gets the last hit and then straight away back to the Forge Spirit, and every time he contests this Forge Spirit. And now here he's getting caught out of position, but he does a really good job here at like walking away from Pudge, and Pudge manages to get away, but it ends up getting a more valuable kill, which is on Invoker, and now he's at 20 souls. This is like one of the best positions you can now be in as like a Shadow Fiend, because you have so many souls now, and he's on level 4 almost. Invoker's probably just at the start of level 4. You're going to be level 5 before your opponent is, and he's flying out another Mango because he wants to play aggressive based off of the next play that's going to happen. So at this point, you look at the last hits, 17 to 8 to 6 to 4. There's a pretty big gap now between the two players, and Shadow Fiend's pulling ahead really hard. And now we're going again with using raises when he gets the chance, and contesting that Forge Spirit constantly whenever he gets the chance. And notice how he's not wasting his raises on pointless creeps. And again, he tries to dodge the raise. He doesn't just stand in one position. Or sorry, he tries to dodge the Sunstrike. So there is like this constant understanding of like that he knows how to play against an Invoker matchup, and there is some sort of predictability about what the other player is trying to do, which is very apparent. He put his 2 Wraith Bands on the ground when he used his Fairy Fire to get like maximum healing, which doesn't really make a huge difference. But either way, what he's doing here is he's not pushing the creep wave forward, he's not contesting the runes, and he doesn't have any vision anymore. So now he's just like farming away and controlling the creep wave where he possibly can. Invoker on the other hand is up here. He's still just standing back, level 5, and now Shadow Fiend's level 7. He's taking command and control because if he keeps denying the creeps, Invoker doesn't, he can potentially go back to the jungle Invoker, but it's not the most ideal. And here's where he just gets ganked, a nice team rotation, and he doesn't even have to use a second raise because he just wants to save his mana for the future in case there's another engagement. So this guy is really efficient about what he's doing in comparison. So if we just take a critique of what items Shadow Fiend has bought at this point, he's going straight away for Shadow Blade. He has 2 Wraith Bands, and he has a Mango and a Clarity, and he's pushing down the mid tower and taking advantage of wherever he can. And straight away, once he's pushed down this tower, he goes high ground. Unlike that Guardian player, he wants to go and get kills, but either way, he's constantly just trying to up pressure here, and he finds Invoker. He uses a Deafening Blast. He tries to run away. Here he's just, is he going to give up on it? He's Cold Snap, and probably not worth it. And Treant Protector could have given him armor. I don't think he gave Invoker armor even, but he could have very easily and saved him. He might have given someone else armor in a different place, but either way, that was not a worth play, and he could have taken advantage a little bit better than that. And seeing as the top tower, the enemy's top tower is currently destroyed, he doesn't really have other places to go, and Juggernaut is a pretty good hero against Shadow Fiend. So the only option he has is really to go bottom, push down this tower, but potentially Slark wants to just farm down here. Either way, there's probably better options than what Shadow Fiend did there. He really wanted to do something with the Shadow Blade as early as he could. He could have just went back jungling and wait for a better opportunity. He's just constantly farming and taking advantage, yet the team is fighting and he's not there, and this is just a constant thing you see of him. Farm, and he could just show up now at like when everyone's dead, and now he decides to back. So these are like small things that he could improve on. So now we're looking at an immortal rank 30 in the North American leaderboards, and it's Yawar. And what's very apparent about this is that he has straight away 2 observer wards, one here and one up here. This is similar to what we were seeing with the ancient player, but he has 2. And why is there 2 in mid rather than having them somewhere else on the map? Well, they have an Earth Spirit, and Earth Spirit likes to gank mid lane a lot, and especially at like higher ranks you'll see that a lot more. And as well, it's just that Shadow Fiend is probably a core component to their draft, and the other thing that makes his lane a little bit easier is that he has a drow in his lane. But the pick of OD is generally considered a counter to Shadow Fiend because of the fact that you can orb him and then deny his creeps, and you can, in some cases, if you play OD very well in your lane, you can really control what you're doing. So what was apparent just there that I didn't really focus on. So watch this, he aggroes the creep under his own tower so that he can deny as far away from OD as possible. Now OD does not want to commit super far up just to be able to deny one creep, and the further the creeps are back, the harder it is for OD to last it. And this is something that I've seen a lot from like higher skill Shadow Fiend players, is that they try and last hit the early creeps under their own tower whenever possible, and constantly aggroing the creep wave back and just pulling it to where he wants it. And he's very good control over what he's doing. Instantly, straight away, he uses his raise once he levels up, and he's just constantly contesting every single creep. Straight away aggroes creeps onto the low ground. Very efficient transitioning between both like aggroing and last hitting. And he's not necessarily trying to like trade with OD, but he is getting in that 1 or 2 right clicks whenever possible, but highly favoring these last hits. And he's already winning in the last hits pretty hard because of this. And he's not obsessing too much about harassing OD because he really wants to get like levels. And already, because of the fact that OD has not got this creep wave killed, so there's 3 creeps here including the range creep, Shadow Fiend hits level 3 before him, but also Shadow Fiend has more denies. Now the denies are not going to make a huge difference, but once this creep wave dies, OD will be level 3 and he potentially could gain an advantage off of this. Now just so he could secure that last hit, he's taking he's using the orb on the creep, and Shadow Fiend stays away from the damage of the creep, even though he still wants to keep playing aggressive and having this aggressive positioning. So as well as this, Earth Spirit is dead, which allows him, Earth Spirit's just after respawning, but he's teleporting bottom. So Shadow Fiend knows that there's not much to be scared of right now, and he can keep just last hitting away, and he's doing really well. And it's really easy to last it at this point, especially under your tower. When you have Drow Aura, you have 12 souls, and he doesn't care about aggroing the creeps under his tower because he can just last hit them no problem. And he's able to harass really hard as well. So he's at a really nice peak point right now, and once he gets to level 5 he gets even stronger again. So around this point of like level 3 or level 5, Shadow Fiend gets really strong, and he's taking as much advantage of that as possible. And now what happens is his 2 wards are just after running out. Now straight away he's farming along here, and he's just farming. It seems okay. At this point you're like, oh, this is all well and good, but Earth Spirit is here to gank, and straight away once the 2 wards have ran out, very small space of time, and players at this higher rank are gonna punish like very small windows like that. And you see how small the windows is, like only like 15-20 seconds of where those 2 observer wards were down. Now here he's just trying to last hit this ranged creep up on the hill, And straight away, once the orb is used, he goes back and just decides to harass, because OD doesn't have an enormous amount of damage. And if he decides to just man fight Shadow Fiend at that position, I think Shadow Fiend wins, so he backs up either way in a 1v1 situation. So now he has an Invis rune, and OD knows this really obviously because he showed it earlier on. And it's apparent that people are checking other people's items, they're checking them regularly, especially when they walk over near the rune. And OD is not stupid. He's just gonna stand behind his tower just to get that fortified to come out, and just straight away push in tower. First thing he does is go into the jungle, get some creeps. There isn't really any openings right now, and ancient camps, so these ancients give a huge amount of gold, and for Shadow Fiend that's very efficient. Straight away into the smoke, going bottom. They're coming a little bit late to the fight, but the macro pyre out by Rubik, and then Ray's kill. So pretty good. And you know straight away that once he's pushed down his tower, he goes and tries and makes a play, and he's coming back to mid lane. He's thinking about it straight away. So notice how that he doesn't want his own tower to die, and that's really important for like commanding the game in general, because it allows you to TP back into it. When he gets his Ewan, instantly he's straight away getting the kill. So see how quickly back to back that he's trying to make plays, rather than like not even just trying, he's actually making plays and doing it very quickly and precise, and very small windows of where he gets an item, he's doing something with it. So diving under the tower, taking advantage potentially of players not having TPs or something going on in top lane. And nice raise as well by Rubik. And why they can also do this is because they have these observer wards. They can see pretty much any rotation that's coming up here. So likely at this bracket people might want to smoke and jump on the Shadow Fiend, but if they're going to smoke, they're going to do it up here near their shrine, so they can see the smoke happen before they come towards them, so they can back off, and like it's not necessarily predicting the smoke. But you see the enemy team is doing just that as I said it, which is straight away Shadow Fiend's out of there. He's top lane now and they're going bottom, so he's like one step ahead of them constantly. Let's farm the enemy jungle. Let's go into the enemy jungle and control their part, and taking advantage. Like what they're trying to do right now is that they've taken this middle tower and the top tower and the tier 1, and they're trying to push in up to top with Timbersaw, who's really tanky right now. And even though Timbersaw doesn't really have many items, it's very hard for them to fight into Timbersaw. So they're on the low ground against an OD who's on the high ground. So he uses his ultimate. So here you'd say, okay, maybe Shadow Fiend failed with his ultimate. No, what he's doing is he's ulting. It reduces the enemy's damage, but it also slows them. And that slow can help your team escape and just run away. So at this point he's affected by Magnetite, running away, potentially undying. He's not sure whether to like come back and fight again, but instead he's actually just going to TP out when he gets the chance. And it's harder for the enemy to run after him. It can sometimes be that little bit of a difference between like escaping and not escaping by using your ult in that scenario. And straight away he's backed up farming creeps and being efficient with his farming. But what you notice as well is that he's moving around the map very efficiently and moving like from left, like bottom lane to mid lane, farming in between as he's moving from lane to lane. So here straight away he's going for the PA. He doesn't even need his ult, he just hits his raises on targets that he needs to hit. And again, he doesn't even use his raises on heroes that he needs to kill. Straight away he's going for a kill on Earth Spirit, and again just very, very efficient rotations throughout. And it feels, if you're playing against the Shadow Fiend, it feels like he's just everywhere. He's last hitting creeps, he's farming efficient, he's getting kills in the bottom lane, he's in mid lane farming. You just don't know where he is because of the fact that he's just moving around the map so quickly. And what's very apparent here is like it's already 17 minutes and they're trying to push objectives. So he went for this ult, which he didn't necessarily get, but here they're picking up kills regardless. And you might have overcommitted a little bit too much there. But what's important about this is that they are pushing their advantage at this part of the game, and I hope, like, looking at these videos or these replays, you can understand a little bit more about what happens at different MMRs and how the mentality is different and what you can expect other players to be doing. But at the same time, I think there's a lot to learn by looking at different players. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe.